everyone, welcome to another Classic Movie Monday. Apologize, this video has to unfortunately be uploaded late. I've been busy throughout this week and last week, so I should be caught up though by the end of today. So without further ado, let me address what I want to really talk about for this particular Classic Movie Monday, and that is the 1950s film White Christmas. And I believe this came out in 54 if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that since my numbers are a little vague here, but it's a 1950s film, to say the least, and has all of the 1950s things that you would come to expect. And is probably one of the more oldie style Christmas films that gets remembered. I mean, it's not, again, on the same level as It's a Wonderful Life or some other Christmas-oriented films that came out even earlier than this film, but it still seems to hold, I think, some significant relevancy. As far as a musical comedy is even concerned, and actually works out itself well, especially with the choreography and dancing that you will see within this film. But basically, throughout the majority of the film at least, it takes place after World War II. You'll see how in the beginning it takes place during, but then it shifts fairly quickly to after the war. And you are basically introduced to our two main characters, and they are performers / producers named Phil and Bob. And Phil and Bob are actually really interesting and have a very kind of dynamic and fun relationship that you would expect two producers to have. And they eventually run into the Haynes sisters named Betty and Judy. And you'll ultimately see how they end up coming together and eventually traveling to Vermont, where Phil and Bob meet their former general during the war. And basically, the general owns this particular lodge within Vermont, and it's unfortunately not doing well. And so Phil and Bob decide to put on a whole grandiose show for the general, so he can get some business within his lodge. And the way in which they orchestrate this whole elaborate show actually works, I think, really well to the film's advantage. There's a lot of charm, there's a lot of holiday-esque cheer and fun that you would come to expect. There's a lot of interesting numbers, and again, if you look at the library of what Seth MacFarlane in particular enjoys, and again, he kind of puts an emphasis on the whole Broadway angle. This Broadway angle is hugely emphasized within this film. So if you enjoy Broadway and really like that whole more staged approach, this film is definitely one that you will really like, because it does feel a lot like more of a stage, as do a lot of these more oldie style films do, because they're, again, very stripped down, very simplified, not all grandiose with special effects and whatnot. Now, there is a certain part of this film, and again, the whole show is that Phil and Bob end up sort of creating is designed to be holiday related, so it's all Christmassy and supposed to give off that holiday-esque cheer. But there is one kind of cliche aspect of this film, and again, it's not like it's, I think, really a really big discouragement, considering the fact that it's really not the main real focus really driving the plot as much. It's just sort of a side note. And again, this is a misinterpretation between Betty and Bob. So again, it's the typical misinterpretation that we see time and time again yes, that aspect is pretty annoying, and I'm sure that there were films around this time who were playing around with these concepts. Um, but here, again, I think it is very, again, it just feels like um, the way in which that the misinterpretation goes so far is, I think, just a little bit, ridiculous and kind of a little bit blown out of proportion. But at the same time, again, I don't think that's really the driving force, and also really the thematic uh, messages that really are part of really the plot. Which again, I think is more about just doing good onto others. In this case, Phil and Bob putting on a whole show for the general so that he can have a better shot with his whole lodge business. Um, I think that's really the true essence and really the heart of the film, and mixed in with a little bit of romance, and again, having there be a misinterpretation that we see in romance all the time. That is blown again way out of proportion that I don't particularly care for, but again, it's not really the biggest uh, part of the film, and you really do see the heart that is put into the whole project, and um, really the whole thing that was sort of behind show business, at least around that time. Um, which again is, I don't think, really even emphasized in a lot of films in general, and in particular even a holiday film at that. So again, I think it brings up a lot of good things, a lot of entertaining and enjoyable moments. Um, and despite, again, this misinterpretation that occurs within the film, I don't think it brings the film down because of it so much. And I think there's a lot of cultural things that at least surrounded that era that are reflected within this film as well. So again, it really does sort of highlight to you a good sort of 50s Broadway production that is a film as opposed to completely staged. But again, I think that's really ultimately all I can say though about the film without really giving too much away. I don't really want to spoil all of the relationships and all of the different things that sort of occur throughout. But it is very interesting, and again, there is a lot of genuineness to it, I think, as well. So, White Christmas. Hopefully, it's a white one for everyone. But happy holidays, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. And hopefully see you on the next video. Bye bye.